Well, these are some long chapters, and there's a lot of things that go on. Now, you may have noticed that as I started the chapter, I read off a list of things that happened, and that's the way it was done in the book. So each of these chapters, 40, 50 pages each, have a whole bunch of little subchapters. Now, they weren't broken down in the book as to what the subchapters were. I'm reading an ebook which is displayed differently than you would see it in a normal hardback or paperback book. But in the version that I had and read as a child, I remember that they were in italics at the beginning of the chapter. So it's chapter 2, and it was like all of these other different little things that happened. And there's a whole bunch of really interesting things that happen in here. And I found coconuts, and I love coconuts. Coconuts are so wonderful tasting, but they're high in fiber and they're high in fat, which can give digestive issues if you eat a lot of it suddenly. So that can be an issue. Now, they mentioned that the coconut milk fermented. Now, in the tropics, when it's really warm, things ferment quickly. Then fermentation is a process where yeast breaks down the sugar into alcohol. And so there's a type of wine that's commonly made in Africa called palm wine, where they take the top of a palm tree and they cut it off. And they hang a gourd there to catch the sap. So just like you catch the sap from a maple tree to make maple syrup, they catch the sap of a palm tree. Now, maple sap is about 3% sugar. Palm sap is about 15% sugar. And because it's hot, and because there's all sorts of natural yeasts, palm wine ferments in a day. So the coconuts fermenting over the course of a day in the canteen is a little bit suspect. But over a course of a few hours, yeah, there will be some definite breakdown of the yeast. And that's what the foaming is, because part of the breakdown of the sugar into alcohol is the yeast takes the sugar and breaks it apart and releases a carbon dioxide. And the ethanol is kind of a byproduct. So the forming of the yeast and the foaming up is completely normal. Once again, going to vinegar by the end of the day is really kind of suspect, but that's a thing that happens. And that's caused by a different bacteria called, or that's caused by a bacteria called Acetobacter. Aceto is the Latin root for vinegar. So you have acetic acid, which is the acid in vinegar, and so it's Acetobacter, which is the vinegar bacteria. So it's a vinegar bacteria. What does it do? It makes vinegar. So, and just like yeast, I've said this before, it's Saccromyces Cervesea, which is sugar fungus beer. So it's the fungus that feeds on sugar and makes beer. So Acetobacter is the bacteria that makes vinegar. So it's kind of, it's a faster process. It's not quite that fast of a process, but it would happen over the course of maybe 4 or 5 days, 3 days, rather than, over the course of half a day. And another thing that I loved about this chapter was he talked about cutting the Calabashes. Take the string, tie it around, whack it with the back of a knife, it makes a little dent. Make another little dent, make another little dent, make another little dent. And then you take the string and you just yank it tight. And when you yank it tight, it cuts through. And cutting through with a bit of string like that is, doing it to a gourd is somewhat uncommon. But it's very common to do it with things like cheese. So if you have cheese, one of the favorite ways to cut cheese, one of the classic ways to cut cheese, is with a bit of wire suspended between 2 prongs. So you have the prongs with the wire, and you cut like this, and the wire cuts through the cheese, and it makes a nice straight cut. So you often see cheese cutter things where it's just this bit of wire pulled tight between 2 metal prongs, and just goes, cuts right through the cheese. It's also very commonly used for modeling clay, where you take a bit of wire and you just pull it through the clay. And because the clay is so soft, the wire just pulls through. and it makes a nice clean cut. And you don't have to worry about the clay sticking to a knife or sticking to whatever, because it's just you're pulling the wire through. And that separates it. It gets a little bit of air in there, so you can just kind of pry it up, because it does stick back a little bit, but not horrendously so. So it's easy enough to pull off that piece. So you quite often see people cutting clay by just pulling a garret through a piece of wire that's pulled tight. Just go pull off the clay. And I also loved, the other thing I loved about the Calabashes was he mentioned how, you have the gourd growing on the tree. You take a little one and you wrap a bandage around it. And that constricts the part of the calabash from growing, and everything else grows. And this is a thing that they do in Japan with watermelons. So in Japan, they get very fancy with fruit, and they make elaborate gifts. So they make a watermelon and they present it bowed up and, with bows and decorations. So it's much more than just a watermelon, but it's a watermelon. And one of the things that they do to make the watermelon more presentable, more artistic, is when the watermelon starts to grow, they take it and they put it in a plastic box. And the plastic box allows the sunlight in, so the watermelon still grows. Because if it's in the shade, it doesn't turn color right and it looks kind of funky and ugly. But they put it in this box, plastic box, and the watermelon grows until it completely fills the box. So what you have is this cubical watermelon. So that's one of the things that they do. I have seen places where they take a globe where they have cutouts of countries and such, and they wrap it around, and the gourd grows to the shape of the earth, and you can see an outline of the earth because it grows to the plastic and then just a little bit above in the cutout holes. I've seen that done before, and that's kind of rare and kind of expensive, but it's really kind of cool to see. So there's all of these different things that, these are things that get done, and they are lucky that they, managed to fight off the jackals. They got a pet monkey. They hope the monkey will be useful. When I was recording this, your lolly laughed out loud when the father threw the stones up at the monkeys, and the monkeys took and threw down the coconuts at them. And there are stories about that, of people, getting monkeys to throw things. I think even Aesop did a fable about that, where somebody's like, threw something at the monkey, and the monkey threw back what he took away. It's like the monkeys took something from somebody, and the person wanted to get it back and tried chasing the monkey, and that didn't work. And so the guy picked up a stone, threw it at the monkey, and the monkey took whatever it was that he'd stolen and threw it back, and the person just grabbed it and was like, see ya. So that's a thing. And there's actually a saying, monkey see, monkey do, that monkeys are known for imitating. How exactly true that is, I don't know. But monkeys are known for imitating. So throws something at the monkey throws back. Don't go throwing things at monkeys in general, but if you need coconuts out of the tree, throw a rock near the monkey, not at the monkey. Maybe it'll throw a coconut at you, but... Oh, and sugarcane. Sugarcane is awesome. You can find it at some grocery stores. It's sweet. You chew on it and it just releases a sweetness. And also, you cut a hole, suck it out. A lot of sugar in the US comes from cane sugar. The other comes from sugar beets, which are beets grown in northern cold climates. And so sugar comes from the top and sugar comes from the bottom, but it doesn't really come from the middle, which is, strange. It's like Minnesota, Wisconsin, they grow sugar beets. Down in Texas and Florida, they grow sugar cane. There's not much sugar grown in Nebraska and Pennsylvania. So sugar doesn't come from the middle. Sugar comes from the top and the bottom. And that is my thoughts on chapter 2.